Good people. It's your boy Theo Dorsey here with you on this Thursday evening. I got my guy Damian Perez in for C-Cat on the other side of the glass on the ones and twos. C-Cat going to be on our high school game day coverage for high school football tonight because that actual football action is already in place, already kicking off and getting going. And Damian, you and I are going to kick it here for the next hour on Theoretically Speaking. We're talking about the wild cards, the wild cards of the NFL. Do you play, I don't know how much of a cards game player are you? Are you a big Uno guy?
I love Uno. Who doesn't love Uno, right?
I absolutely hate Uno.
Oh, man.
I absolutely hate Uno. I think it's the most overrated card game.
Is it because you always lose, or?
It's not that.
Okay.
It's not that. I'm overly competitive. I just feel like Uno is such a game of chance and randomness and not as much of a game of skill. Like, I love spades. I'll play some bid whiz. I'll even play some speed. Are you a speed guy when it comes to cards?
I love cards, man. Like you said, I'm a competitive person myself. I love to compete. Wherever I can compete, man, I'm down for it.
Uno's whack. And also the problem with Uno is, too, no matter where you go, it depends on what house you're at, who you're playing with, what environment you're in. Everybody's got all these different rules and these qualifiers. Like,
that's true.
It just ruins the game for me. It ruins it for me. I'm out on Uno. It's the most overrated card game. When you pull it out at a party, I usually go off to the kitchen and get an extra drink or something and let y'all have it. I'm all the way out on Uno, but that's not what this is about. The reason why I brought that up is in Uno, everybody wants the wild card. Everybody wants the card that you can play that can overrule the color, that can change the game in your favor. In the NFL, though, I would argue you don't necessarily want your team to be known as a wild card. You don't necessarily want your team's fate, the season, to ride on one singular person or coach that is considered a wild card. That's somebody who you can't really expect. You don't know what to expect from them, but their impact can change so much for you. And there's one particular player this year, and we're going to see him in action tonight for the Indianapolis Colts, suiting up at quarterback, the 22-year-old Anthony Richardson, who we got just a little taste of last season. But in the words of Paul Pierce, infamously, I don't want a taste. We want the whole load of Anthony Richardson. And we're going to finally, hopefully, get that this year. And I do think that, Damian, his play, what he's able to do on the football field for that Colts team with Shane Steichen, with a team that overperformed expectation last year based on the fact that Richardson only played 4 games. He only finished 2 games. How good Anthony Richardson can be, how excellent his play can be at the quarterback position, and if he can play all 17 games for the Colts this year, he's the single greatest wild card in the league coming into the 2024 season. So much of the hopes of the Colts, as well as maybe the future of that franchise, and really, honestly, I mean, to keep it frank, there's a lot of fantasy football drafters that are drafting Anthony Richardson high this year as well that are expecting him to be a league winner. Richardson can really break this thing wide open, or he can disappoint a lot of folks, and I do think it goes back directly to a guy who we haven't seen a lot from in his professional career. He's only started, 17 games since high school. This will be his 18th game starting when he kicks off the season with the Colts at home against the Texans this year. So we haven't seen a lot from Anthony Richardson, and there's been a lot left to be. There's a lot left on the bone there. But if he can prove to be one of the budding superstar quarterbacks in this league, not only will we have another fun team out of the AFC to watch with another prolific offense, that can shake things up when it comes to that AFC. It's deep. You're a Dolphins fan, Damian. You know how tough it is to squeeze in the playoffs in today's AFC.
Today's AFC, man. I've known it for how many years, how tough it is to make the playoffs in the AFC.
That's because Tom Brady was just rolling over your division for so long.
Exactly. But
sorry about that, by the way.
You said it, man. Anthony Richardson, small taste, but you can see the talent. We've seen it at UF. He's got the arm talent, and the Colts drafted Adonai Mitchell, man. He dropped to the Colts in the second round. So that team has been loading up in weapons. I think
we know what we're going to get from Shane Steichen. We know what we're going to get from the backfield and Jonathan Taylor, who was a premier superstar
blanked.
back, right?
He was banged up last year. Yeah. I anticipate him to be healthy. I mean, Anthony Richardson can really blow the roof off that ceiling.
He can make something shake for the Colts in a way that we haven't seen since we had a guy like Andrew Luck out there tossing the pigskin around, providing hope for that team. It's not one of those things where it's just, that will be fun. That could be entertaining. That would be great as a football fan to see. I really do think this year coming into this season, it's unpredictable what Anthony Richardson can do if he does start 17 games for the Colts. The high point of that is super duper. That ceiling is super high based off what we saw Shane Steichen do with a dual threat quarterback in Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia when he had his runner-up MVP season and was able to bring the Eagles all the way to the Super Bowl within plays of beating Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm tantalized at the very proposition of us having yet another budding superstar in the AFC at the quarterback position, and that is Anthony Richardson. He is the wild card with the most amount of swing this year coming into the NFL season, which again kicks off in 2 weeks. We got Chiefs and Ravens. It's going to be a rematch of the AFC Championship game. I'm pumped for the NFL season to get back going. We're a few days away from Dublin, Ireland, with Florida State and Georgia Tech kicking off the college football season. Like, it's here. It's fall, and I hope y'all are all the way in it as well, all the way locked in as we are here, right here on Theoretically Speaking. But who's going to be that biggest wild card? Coach, player, front office member? Maybe if you're the Carolina Panthers, it's your owner, David Tepper, who's maybe the craziest wild card, and maybe not even a wild card. You just know he's going to do erratic stuff. Who's going to be the biggest wild card coming into this NFL season that can swing things in ways that will really move the needle based on what teams are contenders, what teams are competing for championships, competing for playoff spots, or they're going to disappoint in a big way and have that team in the cellar? Hit us up right here on Theoretically Speaking, the Baptist Health Hotline, 888-760-3776, 888-760-3776. Who or what is the biggest wild card in this NFL season? The Baptist Health Hotline, are you experiencing foot and ankle pain and need to see an expert in the field? Baptist Health Orthopedic Care has a team of foot and ankle orthopedic surgeons and specialists who are regarded as leaders in their specialty. Visit baptisthealth.net/ortho to learn more today. Baptist Health Orthopedic Care combines its resources of experienced physicians and leading-edge treatments and technology to provide advanced orthopedic, foot and ankle, joint replacement, spine, and sports medicine care. Visit baptisthealth.net/ortho for more information today. Baptist Health Orthopedic Care has offices conveniently located in Palm Beach County through the Florida Keys. Learn more by visiting baptisthealth.net/ortho. When I think about last year's NFL season, when I think about the way that things panned out, how the playoffs ended up being, and where we got as a league, I mean, you could consider a couple of these guys the wild cards that swung the pendulum. Think about Jordan Love. The way that the Packers were set up, we knew that LaFleur was a not a genius, but maybe a brilliant head coach in this league. We saw what he was able to do with Aaron Rodgers. That was all reinforced literally by the play of Jordan Love, who was playing on a prove-it contract at quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, and it didn't even start off strong. It was a slow start to the season. There was a lot of doubts around whether or not Jordan Love would be the heir apparent and be a guy that can fill the shoes of Aaron Rodgers. And what did he do on the back end of that year? Carried the Packers in a way that, since the clock turned November, they were winning these really tough, pivotal games. They were able to get all the way into the postseason and then topple the Cowboys and turn them into a state of frenzy there. And now he's a guy that's making $50+ million a year for the Packers. And people like me are singing his praises as a potential future Hall of Famer. Like, that's how much things can change in one calendar year in the NFL. And there's a couple of guys that are right at the top of that list. I think Anthony Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts. I remain in the AFC and look at a guy who we've seen play at a superstar level before, but it was 2020 since we've seen him have a great season, since we've seen him look like a quarterback that you can trust your franchise with. Now, that didn't stop the Cleveland Browns from giving this guy $200+ million guaranteed. But Deshaun Watson, I mean, if he can just be better than a 35+-year-old Joe Flacco, if he could be better than a geriatric Joe Flacco for that Cleveland Browns team, which has one of the scariest dudes in the league, and Myles Garrett, which has Amari Cooper, who's a true number one receiver still, even at this age. You have a head coach in Kevin Stefanski who made Baker Mayfield look like a guy that should be invested in. And then you get the return of Nick Chubb, the pride of Cleveland, a guy that embodies what Browns fans really kind of rally behind. They love that guy, a dog. Like, if Deshaun Watson is any good this year, the Browns should be able to consider themselves a contender. They were just in the postseason last year with Joe Flacco, with Deshaun Watson missing a lot of games. A lot of Browns fans all the way out on the dude, and I don't blame them for it, but he's a huge wild card. Can we see the play anything similar to what we saw back in the 2020s, the earlier in his career? Or is he going to give up that lethargic effort that we've seen since? I don't know. But again, that's what a wild card is. That's how big of a sway that can be. And for those two teams, two AFC teams in a conference stacked with quarterbacks, that's going to be integral for the advancement of those franchises. And if I were to say one way or the other for the Browns, I don't see Watson returning to form. And maybe that's just me rooting against the guy. And maybe that's just me also knowing that there's so much prolific quarterback play in the AFC. For the Dolphins last year was the weather, Damian.
Yeah.
I mean, are you sick of people talking about how they can't win games in the cold?
I mean, the narrative is there because if you see it, all the sample size show us that they cannot.
Yeah.
But that is the prove it. That's the deal that they have to prove, you know? They got to go up to Buffalo. They got to beat Buffalo and Buffalo.
Yeah.
That's kind of the hurdle that the Dolphins have to jump.
They're going to have to jump that hurdle, and I don't look at Tua Tagovailoa as a wild card. A lot of people do see his play or what he's able to do for this team, whether or not he's able to raise the ceiling, as maybe that's considered a wild. I think you know what you get from that guy. He's pretty consistent as a quarterback. He's delivered at a level for the Dolphins where their offense has been really, really good with Mike McDaniel and all the weapons that are all now reinvested into. Now his confidence is at an all-time high. He's paid. He's secured. I mean, you know the brother is feeling good and comfortable the way that he's now opening up about his previous relationship with Brian Flores and whatnot. Might have taken it too far calling him a terrible person. But, again, once you get paid, once you get that real security behind you, sometimes that veil kind of comes back a little bit and you're able to open up and get comfortable. Like, what does a comfortable Tua Tagovailoa look like in the league now? This might be the first year he goes into it actually feeling like he's not just best position to win with all the weapons the Dolphins have this year and Mike McDaniel believing in him and the team paying him. Also, he proved to himself and everybody else last year, hey, I played a full 17. I was healthy.
Led the league in yards.
Led the league in passing yards. Maybe I didn't. Okay, so sure. I looked bad in some of those cold weather games. I wasn't able to contend or compete at the highest level against those playoff teams except for that win over the Cowboys. But I'll be damned if he didn't prove at least that the injury concerns are a little bit more in the rearview mirror. So Tua less of a wild card, just more of a guy that has a lower ceiling, and we'll see what they're able to churn out of that with the Miami Dolphins. Evan Cohen, who you hear on Unsportsmanlike 6 to 10 a.m., compare them to the old Cincinnati Bengals with Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton. And when I think about that comp, when I think about those two teams mirrored against each other, I'm like, is that a diss? It's kind of spot on.
I would say better offense.
Better offense, yeah. But expectations as well as what they're delivering when it comes to winning games at a high level season after season. Like, we haven't had a big enough sample size of it. It's only been really 2 years of this iteration, but I can see this carrying over for the next couple of years, and maybe it's not an indictment on the Dolphins. Again, it's praise for what strength this AFC has and how many elite quarterbacks are just up and down the list when you look at that conference.